There's nothing quite like sitting down for a nice session of Stardew Valley and then coming to after 3 weeks of min-maxing cash crops, fishing the local rivers into extinction, and getting the town drunkard to fall in love with me. I can fix him. I swear. He's only a dick to me as a defense mechanism. Just a couple more pepper poppers and I'll have changed that depressed alcoholic into a real man. But in all seriousness, there's something so refreshing about leaving the stresses of city living and enjoying media about a more simple, rustic experience. Video games, movies, television shows, books excel at transporting you to a rural state of mind. Oh my god, I've been reading the same paragraph for the last 20 minutes. I've got no attention span anymore. What's so captivating about these stories? These communities that has people moonlighting as small town settlers. Man, I wish there was a video essay all about this. You know, one with different sections that would cut in between them with transition.
Where am I?
Where are you? Shoot, you're in Radiator Springs, the cutest little town in Carburetor County.
Oh, great.
Nothing says small town charm like an anthropomorphic race car getting lost on his way to the Piston Cup rematch, stumbling upon a quaint hidden gem of a town. That's right, the moderate Republican's favorite Pixar movie does a perfect job illustrating the draw to rural living. Even the stoplights move a little slower in Radiator Springs.
I'm telling you, man, every third blink is slower.
This little community of mom and pop businesses all support each other financially, socially, and emotionally. Everyone knows everyone else's names. They understand the fragile ecosystem that holds their town together and rely on each other to keep things afloat. Lightning McQueen learns over the course of the movie how important small towns are to the lifeblood of America, the majesty of traveling off the beaten path, and how important it is to preserve communities like this. It's literally the conservatives' wet dream, minus the racially diverse cars, the Italian twinks, oh, and Sally owning her own business? Yeah, no. But other than that, it's perfect. And you know what? There's a lot of charm to that place. There's a culture, a heavily sanitized culture that people, cis, white, predominantly straight people, fall in love with, which beckons them to these underpopulated areas. It's the millionaire race car who doesn't see Mater for the intelligent, affable person he is. And also the super spy action hero that was weirdly brought up in the second movie and then never talked about again? Like, we're just gonna let that one fly, Pixar? What? How? What? 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 I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. Okay. Undervaluing the intelligence and ingenuity of people from small towns is a key part of why these movies are so engaging. Take Logan Lucky, for example, the greatest heist movie ever made. Sure, you've seen a bunch of charming, attractive, uniquely talented individuals rob a casino in Las Vegas, but have you ever seen Channing Tatum, Adam Driver with one hand, and convicted felon Daniel Craig rob the Coca-Cola 600? I ask you, which one is more impressive? I'm gonna go with the guys who use gummy bears to blow open a vault.
We are dealing with science here.
I guess when I saw that gummy bears is our secret ingredient to our explosive device, that I wasn't thinking about science.
And what's the motivation for Danny Ocean to rob a casino in the first place? He's a lifetime crook looking for his biggest score yet? Lame. Really, bud? Really? That's all you got? That's it? Handsome boy didn't want to get a real job? Oh no, he's got to get a real job. You know, contribute to the means of production. Oh no, he just doesn't want to do it. Oh no. Okay, the Logan brothers are honest, hardworking citizens that were chewed up and spit out by the hyper-capitalist system that seeks to keep them in their socioeconomic class. They're stealing from $1 billion company to escape the reality that they wouldn't be able to, no matter how many bootstraps they pull up. And you know what? They make sure everyone gets a fair cut. No one's living like a billionaire after the job is over. They go back to their regular lives without the steel-toed boot of economic depravity constantly on their neck. And let's not forget that the real victims of their crime was the insurance agency. And those guys are like an 8 out of 10 on the evil scale. Now that's a heist.
You looking for a Tilly, buddy? Let's have a Donnybrook!
Pump the brakes. You take your shirt off, but leave your sunglasses on.
What sort of backwards fucking pageantry is that?
You gonna fight with those shades or play PokerStars.com?
Movies give us a little taste of this slice of life, but television shows allow us a much deeper parasocial connection with these communities and lifestyles. My personal favorite being Letterkenny. Set in rural Canada, Letterkenny paints the wild absurdities of a small town that's equal parts goofy and charming. How often do you get to spend the afternoon outside getting into fights at the produce stand? Or getting into fights while tailgating the local hockey game? I mean, they even make going to bars look fun. There's a clear fondness and understanding the creators of these shows have towards this rural setting, as opposed to a lot of media which would categorize rural America as a bunch of lazy, inbred hicks. Wait a minute. That sounds like a callback to me. I'm referencing my own video there. Check it out. Check it out on youtube.com. Ooh, right there. I'm just kidding, that's an end card. You won't be able to click it. Our characters prefer to stay out in the countryside. They don't want for all the fuss of living in the big city. And that's okay. More than okay. That's desirable for them. They're content with what they have. And as opposed to big city sitcoms like Friends, Seinfeld, and How I Met Your Mother, shows like Letterkenny, Trailer Park Boys, My Name is Earl, and King of the Hill explore a life that's foreign from what most media dictates as aspirational. In those former shows, what do I have to latch onto? The ability to meet up with my friend group outside of work? To have enough disposable income to eat out at a bar multiple times a week? I'm more likely to settle down on a farm in Wyoming and positively contribute to my local community than find an affordable apartment in New York City.
You really are the most devious bastard in New York City.
And that sounds way more fulfilling than whatever hybrid stay-at-home desk job I might be able to get in the city. The city is exciting and expensive and crowded, and the air quality is terrible. Life in rural America is boring and simple and calmer and quieter. I'm sure I'm not the first one to feel a sense of ease when I take a trip out of my city. There's a level of constant stress that's always present, with sirens going on at all hours, construction, the fucking ice cream truck that stops by my street every single day and plays the same kids tune for a full 15 fucking minutes before leaving every day at 5 p.m. It's a lactose intolerant person's nightmare. You have to find a sense of escape somewhere. And the more stressed you feel about that hour-long commute to work every day, the more that pair of overalls and work boots starts to look pretty comfortable. What's the next best thing to moving out to the countryside and enjoying a quiet life of honest work and simple pleasures? Buying a video game that allows you to have all of that catharsis while you're still within walking distance of a grocery store and a McDonald's. There is actually a daily deal for McDonald's fries right now. I'll be right back. All right, now we're ready for the mukbang portion of this video. I'm kidding. Ooh, he's gonna do it. Stardew Valley has been consistently one of the most purchased and played video games since it came out in 2016. And even before that, games like Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon scratched that farming/daily routine simulator itch. It's honestly wild that many of us will pick up a game that's really just a second job and spend another part-time job's worth of time playing it. Just like in Cars, we get the personal treat of discovering a quaint little town doing its best to survive with the impending doom of the Joja Corporation knocking at its door. You get to know each character, what their habits are, when their birthday is, and what they like to be given on a bi-weekly basis. Over time, and a lot of prismatic shards, like a lot of prismatic shards, so many prismatic shards, they turn from ambivalent strangers into dear friends. And for about a dozen of them, potential lovers. Ooh, which hot 16-bit character with a tragic backstory are you going to romance? We've got stuck-up blonde, jock, guy with really nice hair, science girl, crystal mommy, the antisocial bookworm, a depressed alcoholic. The depth and richness of Stardew Valley's town and surrounding areas is a textbook example of what makes small town living so interesting. No long commutes, no paid parking, a trusting community that helps others out. It's got it all. In Animal Crossing, you don't even have to forego the crushing weight of capitalism that follows you everywhere. Tom, I swear I'll get you those bells. Just give me a little bit more time and I will pay that house off. You do not have to worry. Just give me a couple more days. I'll shake some trees down. I will sell some fruit. Please. Where'd you go? Tom? Tom? Some games debase the rural lifestyle down to even more rudimentary yet just as addictive concepts. I call these games blue-collar job simulators, a genre that's really exploded in the last 5 years. It all started off with Euro and American truck simulators, which are doing a mind-bogglingly good job of mapping entire continents for players to have hobbyist trucking careers in. I've seen Power Wash Simulator, Car Mechanic Simulator, Lawn Mowing Simulator, Ranch Simulator, Gas Station Simulator. They've got a simulator for everything these days. Just don't ask about the dating simulators. Don't do it. You don't want to know. I don't want to know. Neither of us want to know. I know. And I resent that knowledge. I cannot unsee what I've seen. It feels good to work with your hands and have a visual impact on the business you own. Sure, it's all gamified. I don't see any of these job simulators having a very robust tax preparation filing portion of the game, but there's clearly a demand for people to be less alienated from their work. Staring at spreadsheets and email boxes all day is not just boring, it's meaningless in the grand scheme of things. Nothing kills motivation faster than increasing shareholder value 40 hours a week. These games allow us to provide a utility, to contribute to a community, and to see the benefits from that contribution. That kind of labor doesn't really exist in large cities, even if you are working with people every day. Most everyone you meet is a stranger, and it's nearly impossible to develop a truly robust community that you can depend on. All problems that could be solved by living in a small town. At this point, I'm half convinced. I've got a couple of Zestimates open for land plots, some tiny home options, a quote for Starlink. Might as well open up TikTok and YouTube to get some inspiration. Oh my god. Is this white flight? Did nobody tell me this was white flight? We're gonna have to do a section on that.
Starting last night and through the next several hours, all white people are being transported north of the Canadian border to what has now been renamed the new United States.
This isn't a new phenomenon, pining for the countryside. As far back as the 18th century, wealthy landowners would summer in the countryside, and then when the weather started to turn, would beeline for the cities where amenities like more effective heating and electricity gave more comfort. Not to double dip on Jane Austen 2 videos in a row, but she did detail this behavior heavily in Pride and Prejudice. Just for funsies, we'll use the 1995 limited series instead of the 2005 Keira Knightley movie. The whole plot starts with Mr. Bingley purchasing an estate in the countryside close to the Bennets and hosting a dance where Elizabeth and Mr. Darcy meet. And you know what? Back to the 2005 version, because I just realized that Keira Knightley plays Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice only 2 years after she plays Elizabeth Swann from Pirates of the Caribbean. Now that's a fun fact. Okay, so back to the disgusting opulence. Entire economies ran on wealthy white people moving from their winter flats into their summer estates. Cue Downton Abbey, Upstairs, Downstairs, Bridgerton, you get the idea. Rural communities were owned, operated, and survived off of the patronage of these rich landowners. And honestly, that continues to be the case. You guys ever have that one rich kid in school talk about their family's lake cabin they went to during the summers? If they were using summer as a verb, they were in a completely different tax bracket. That's for sure. So, if you're wealthy enough to have 2 homes, this seems like the way to go. That's right, Hannah from Montana. You too can get the best of both worlds. You get the best of both worlds. Feel it together. Then you rock out the show. You get the best. And then I've got like the blonde hair coming in. Okay, well what about the rest of the middle class whiteys? Not everyone can own 2 houses at once. And honestly, nobody should while there's still unhoused people in every major city in the United States. After World War II, there was a mass migration of white people from population centers. Mostly, this meant moving from the city into the suburbs, while redlining any potential home buyers of color to maintain the whiteness of their picket fences. Media about the dangerous, filthy, and drug-laden inner city spread the fear-mongering that would shape the next several decades. Movies like Blade Runner, Escape from New York, and RoboCop amplified the negative views of cities, while the war on drugs and militarization of police brutalized minority communities. At the turn of the millennium, massive cities began to see a resurgence of wealthier, whiter people as gentrification began to take hold in larger cities. The revitalization of these once neglected neighborhoods brought in more taxpayer dollars, yes, but at the expense of the communities living there before. Small businesses were shut down in favor of national chains and boutique stores. Working class families were priced out of their homes, forced to move further away into the now dilapidated suburbs they were once banned from. A fantastic depiction of this is the movie Back to the Future 2, in which Marty McFly finds out he'll eventually move into the nicest neighborhood in town, only to find out that it's become a rundown and unsafe neighborhood due to the movement of wealth. The wealthy LARP the poor to further distance themselves from the middle class, and the middle class in turn follow the wealthy, hoping one day to look just like them, all while the true creators of the culture, the people who initially lived in those neighborhoods, are taken advantage of, evicted from their homes, and pushed further into undeveloped areas. And now the cycle is beginning to happen again. As new developments spur up and price even middle-class families out of the city, they'll begin to look elsewhere for housing, inevitably leading back to the suburbs, rural communities, and away from the city. Except for this time, with the advancement of technology and connection through the internet, we don't have to just live in Bakersfield. We can live anywhere in the US, hell, anywhere in the entire world, and still keep our jobs. Not to feed into the conservative propaganda or anything, but people are leaving large cities like LA and New York more than they're coming in. And we've begun to see the effects that these population movements can have on smaller communities. I'm not sure I want to contribute to that kind of shift, and I recognize that even being able to consider it is a privilege. But honestly, is it worth going through all that trouble? Is a rural life really all it's cracked up to be?
I don't give a goddamn how famous I am or whatever. It don't matter to me because I'm about dead anyway, so what I give a shit. I don't care who likes me and who don't.
Let's get real. We've all been idolizing the land, the escape from our everyday lives, how it would feel for us to enjoy the benefits of a rural life. But what about the people who actually live in these communities? That's right, gentrification can happen outside of cities as well. Sure, if the locals don't want a bunch of queer and people of color liberalizing the place, that's one thing. But the people who do have the economic means to make such a dramatic life change will have a lot more influence on a town than the people who have lived there for generations. What happens when Quill from Portland realizes there aren't any gluten-free vegan restaurants in the area, much less grocery stores that provide those options? Food insecurity is a massive problem for rural communities whose residents don't have access to grocery stores at all. And this is made even worse by companies like Dollar General and Dollar Tree coming into these areas and pricing local stores out of the market, all while removing the ability for actual grocery stores to move in. I mean, I'd rather a mom and pop shop than the local Kroger, but even a store like Kroger will have much more nutritious products than a place like Dollar Tree. And that's not even taking into the account the stress that even a moderate exodus from these cities would cause on the infrastructure of these towns. Oh yeah, infrastructure. The sexiest topic there is. Electricity, water, sewage, internet, things you don't have to think about when you're living in a population center become increasingly more precious, and that leaves the community with less. Internet access specifically is a massive setback for rural populaces, with 1 in 4 people not having proper access to broadband internet at usable speeds. Good luck watching Cars 2 at a reasonable resolution, much less no-scoping ops from across the map on Dust 2. Bro, you gotta be kidding me. I was godlike. Just are you with the 300 ping? It's just not gonna happen. And all of this is happening while the poorest and most underserved communities continue to struggle with developing nation levels of poverty. The situations the poor have in rural communities are empirically worse than any housed community in a population center. Even accounting for socioeconomic and racial disparities, the lack of access to public transit, publicly funded resources like food kitchens, and access to medical treatment makes these people the most brutalized by the system we live in.
Man, accountability. It's getting hard to grab a hold of in this social justice world that they're ushering in, isn't it?
While I was looking through some rural content creators for inspiration and research for this video, I started to notice that I was getting recommended some unusual videos. Just look at the front page of my YouTube recommended the other day. I've never even searched for Joe Rogan, let alone wanted to see what Megan racist comments Kelly had to say about the supposed gender divide in Gen Z political opinions. Why would YouTube recommend me this video? Honestly, I follow BreadTube pretty religiously, as you can see. I'm not going to try and make an educated case for the resurgence of the right-wing pipeline here. This is just anecdotal evidence that caught my eye. There are definitely content creators out there who take on the rural, homesteading, small town aesthetic and combine it with conservative talking points.
I'm calling out the LGBTQRSTUV plus community, right? And I'm calling out Tractor Supply.
I mean, come on, have you seen the prepper community? I can't find a decent recommendation of a battery without stumbling onto a QAnon dystopian scenario in the review. And don't even get me started on the trad wife trend. Whether there's a push from YouTube or not, the association of these communities with people who are pushing a political agenda are doing a disservice to the communities they're talking about. At least I'm bold enough to say that I'd be taking advantage of these communities were I to move in and not try my best to assimilate into their way of life.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
There is one silver lining to this topic, and that's the empathy you gain from watching stories about rural communities. The grifters, the traditionalist defenders, the rich aggressors, they all take advantage of the mythos of rural life. But the genuine stories of the people who live in those places, the media that's made by the creators from those communities, those are the ones worth empathizing with. To become familiar with how someone lives their life completely differently from you is to better understand their point of view, to know why they live the way they do, and to understand what about their lifestyle you can learn from. Maybe it's not about finding myself in the woods. Maybe it's about going outside and touching some grass once in a while, creating spaces that my friends and I can enjoy together without the pressure to spend money. For instance, why not look for a community garden to volunteer with? Maybe plan a camping trip with coworkers, or join a hiking group at your local REI. Whatever you do, the goal should be to create a lifestyle that you can be content with. That's what we truly gain from rural romanticization. Rural romanticization. Romanticization. Romanticizing rural lifestyles. Being a rural romantic, if you will. Picking roses rurally. I don't even know, man. For me personally, it's about understanding what about the city I live in is frustrating, like traffic, and taking steps to mitigate that while also enjoying the things that I love about this city. If that means biking to a metro station and making my commute 3 times longer than it has to be, that's okay, because there's some freedom to be had in there. Not to be burdened by having to park, not to be tied down by this massive hunk of metal. That is something that is valuable to me. Thank you for sticking with me to the end. I'd love to know if you felt a similar way about the media I brought up, or maybe you have a different example that speaks to you. If you haven't finished with your household chores yet, I've got another video you can check out right here. And if you want to see what I've got cooking up next, be sure to subscribe. I'll catch you soon. That is if my new internet situation can handle it. No matter how many bootstraps